Resuming debate, the honourable member for Davenport.
Gracias, señor presidente. Buenas tardes. Mr. Speaker, good afternoon. It's an absolute pleasure for me to rise in this House to speak to Bill S-218, an act respecting Latin American Heritage Month to designate October as Latin Heritage Month in Canada. I want to thank the late Senator Tobias Ervinga Jr., who left us way too soon, late last year. I want to thank him for his leadership and for sponsoring this bill. And I also want to thank my colleague, the member for Thornhill, that is the sponsor for this bill in this venerable House. Mr. Speaker, you may not know this, but my mother's Mexican. She was born in a small town called Recodo in Mexico. It's internationally known for their band music, so they're known for a band called El Bande de Recodo. Later in life, she moved to Mazatlan, which is a beautiful seaside beach resort town, where she met my father, who was traveling through, and moved to Canada. And so that's why I was born here. Her name is Maria Amparo Lizárraga Zataran. And so my last name doesn't reflect it, but I'm a very proud Mexican-Canadian and a very proud Hispanic-Canadian. And I'm so pleased that in my downtown west riding of Davenport, I'm happy to have a growing Hispanic community that's very diverse. So we have a number of people from North, Central, and South America. I have Mexicans, Ecuadorians, Chileans, Salvadorians, Guyanese, Colombians, Peruvians, and so many others from this amazing part of the world. And in Davenport, we also have many celebrations of the Latin American culture in Davenport, including the very popular Salsa St. Clair. So this is a very popular festival that tends to take place the first weekend in July, and we get thousands of people that come out from right across the city to come to sing in Spanish, to celebrate their different cultures, the different parts of Latin American and Central American cultures, and also to learn how to do some salsa lessons. So we turn St. Clair into a big dance floor, and it's a wonderful, wonderful celebration. And in my riding of Davenport, we also have a number of programs for the Hispanic community, including a very popular seniors program, and it's at the Davenport Perth Community Center. And I'd like to give a shout out to Mariela and Lumi for all their hard work in keeping our Hispanic seniors healthy, active, and engaged. And I'm hoping at some point to bring all of them up to the Hispanic Day on the Hill that me and my colleague from Honoré Mercier organizes with Senator Rosa Galvez. Now, Mr. Speaker, Bill S-218 is super important. It basically sets aside a specific time of the year to celebrate and educate fellow Canadians about the unbelievably talented Hispanic and Latin American communities in Canada. And should this bill pass, October will be the month that is dedicated as the time to honor the contributions of Hispanic Canadians in Canada. And in fact, I don't know if you know this, Mr. Speaker, but there's actually an annual award that's given to the 10 most influential Hispanic Canadians. These awards have been happening for the last 11 years. They're given out to an amazing pool of Hispanic and Latin American leaders. They're leaders in business, in science, in arts, in academics, in law, in media, and in so many areas. And I just want to mention a few of them. I happened to have a chance to meet with them last week. You know, I want to mention Amanda Martinez, who is a world-renowned musician and artist, both a Juno-winning artist as well as international awards. We have Ana Dominguez, who's the president of Campbell Company of Canada. We have Mercedes Gertz, who's a former dean and professor at Wilfrid Laurier University. We have Dr. Alejandro Edem, who's a mathematician who's the CEO of Mitax Canada. So as you could tell, lots of amazing, talented Hispanic and Latin American Canadians here in Canada. And they serve as an inspiration not only to the Hispanic community, Mr. Speaker, but they serve as an inspiration to all Canadians. And we, of course, are doing a number of things in Ottawa to promote the Hispanic and Latin American culture. My colleague earlier from Honoré Mercier mentioned that both he and I organized Hispanic Day on the Hill. We started it 2.5 years ago when we first came into the office and recognized that there was no opportunity for us to elevate at the national level a celebration that celebrates the amazing talents and diversity of the culture, as well as the contributions of all of the amazing Hispanic community to Canada and to this country. Last week, Mr. Speaker, I had a wonderful opportunity to host a number of leaders. There were 20 top 10 leaders of Canada here. They came in, they met with Minister Champagne, they met with Minister Duncan, and they met them on issues of great importance to the community. And some of the issues that we talked about is talking about how is it that we can invigorate Canada's thriving startup culture, how do we create more awareness for Hispanics and Canada's creative class, how is it that we can provide more support for migrant workers, and the list goes on. But we had a wonderful discussion with a number of ministers. It was very successful, and I was delighted to be able to host them on the Hill. Now, Mr. Speaker, Canada has recognized the magic and the opportunity of Latin American countries. And indeed, we've actually engaged quite a bit in trade agreements with our Latin American counterparts. The first one that included a number of Latin American countries is the CPTPP. It includes, there's 11 countries, a lot in Asia, but it includes 3 from Mexico and 2 from South America, Peru and Chile. And so that is something that we're looking forward to expanding our trade relations through that agreement. And then, indeed, we actually launched about 2 months ago, we launched negotiations for Mercosur, which is the South American trading bloc comprised of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. And it's a combined population of 260 million people and a GDP of over $3 trillion. So delighted that we have that we have one agreement in place. We also have a Canada-Chile trade agreement in place. We're working hard on Mercosur, but that will absolutely further cement a deepening trade relationship between Canada and our Latin and Central American countries, but also deepen our cultural ties as well as personal ties with each of these countries. I want to also mention that we have a number of youth mobility agreements, particularly with Chile and with Mexico. This allows youth for both of our respective countries to actually travel to each other's countries, to work, to study, so that we could learn more about each other. And I think ultimately this helps to strengthen the relationships between our respective countries. And I think it bodes well for our future. And maybe a final mention, there are a number of very important issues that I've been working on within the Latin American community that has been a commitment from our government. We've been working a lot in terms of making sure that agricultural workers' rights are supported here in Canada. Many of them come from Mexico. They do a wonderful job. They're temporary foreign workers. And we've actually put money in budget 2018 to ensure that their rights are protected, that they are treated well here. And we've also put some money aside to ensure that nonprofit groups have the ability to be able to help support these agricultural temporary workers here in Canada, ensure that they know their rights, and if they have any issues, that they can communicate with them in their own language on how to actually address those issues. We're putting money into promoting multiculturalism. And we've also given some teeth to an ombudsperson who is actually able to ensure that Canadian companies that are doing, that are in the mining industry in our different sectors around the world, and in particular in Mexico, in Latin America, and South America, that that Canadian companies make sure to adhere to human rights, to adhere to environmental rights. So want to let you know, Mr. Speaker, we're doing a lot in terms of taking advantage of the opportunities that are before us in Latin and Central America. And we're looking forward to building stronger relations. I know that my time is quickly up, and I want to end by thanking you for the opportunities to speak on this very important bill. I encourage all of my colleagues in the House to support it. And as our Prime Minister always says, Canada is stronger because of our diversity. And indeed, the Hispanic community has enriched our culture, our community, our lives, and Canada is a better country for it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.